Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Heroes of the Storm North America Fall Regional Day number 2. We are in the 5th series of the day to figure out who is going to be moving on into the semi-finals in second place here in Group B. Of course, this is going to be GFE going up against TNC. My name is James Kailaus Carroll. Alongside me are the two more regular talk show hosts of the Heroes of the Storm world. You excited for our final series of the day?
How could I not be excited? Everything about today has been flipped on its head. Gale Force, the dominant favorite, the reigning champs, now in basically the loser side qualification match. Did not expect that.
Nobody expected Gale Force to be in the decider of this group.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people were like, oh, maybe Naventic and Denial, one of them, like maybe Naventic will lose to Denial or something and have to play the decider. Nobody thought Gale Force was even going to be touched in this group stage, and they looked shaky in their match against Fox.
Yeah, let's take a look at the bracket as a whole to see how those shakes and turns have elapsed here throughout the bracket as a whole, as we did start the day off with Gale Force eSports taking out team name change 2-1, and then of course Fox Nihili were advancing on against Gul'dan's Game 2-1 there. And then moving on forward, we had Gale Force eSports losing out to Vox Nihili 2-0, pushing them down to the lower bracket, and that is where we end up now with team name change eventually defeating GDG down there and moving on for one chance here to move on into the semi-finals to keep their hopes alive to then try and push on to BlizzCon. It feels so surreal, actually, these tournaments at the moment. It felt surreal when we were in DreamHack Valencia to say a team is getting the opportunity to qualify to BlizzCon, because it is such a prestigious tournament to be able to kind of attend in these situations.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
I wish I could go to BlizzCon. But in all seriousness, this group kind of played out in a way no one expected. Honestly, Gul'dan's Game having a lot of difficulty in the late game in both of their matches, eventually falling to TNC, who themselves looked like they had difficulty coordinating those big teamfight heroics, something we've seen a lot of in North America this weekend, actually, probably because of all the newish rosters. The communication, the synchronization of those heroics has just not been there. And in order for TNC to overcome Gale Force, they're going to need to step it up to the next level.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, when it comes to Gul'dan's Game, do you think, what's their weakness? Is it like their shot calling, just not having the rotations in time? Or because they're one of those rosters where those players have known each other and have played with each other for the most part, for a long time?
My first instinct is that a lot of their weakness came from draft, actually, in this event. We saw multiple times questionable picks. Every time they drafted a team with Medic, it looked vulnerable to the dive or to the big heroics. In the other sets, they just drafted compositions that didn't really look like they knew what was going on. In the one game that McIntyre had Kerrigan on Towers of Doom, he looked amazing personally, but they even barely scraped by in that game, thanks to an amazing outplay post-level 20.
All right, let's take a closer look at our first team going into the semi-final. It is TNC, team that's just come off the back of a victory against Gul'dan's Game. And in the end, it was a sporadic and crazy series. I'm expecting them to try and bring out a bit more of an ironed game or two here, because if they don't, GFA could potentially just run them over.
Yeah, I mean, Gale Force has had a match to sit back, watch TNC play, pick apart their style, also to shrug off their loss from the winner's side of the bracket.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be seeing GFE come in refined, not tilted, evenly leveled out here, looking towards TNC, who honestly are coming off a big win. So on the side of TNC, they have to be feeling great.
TNC is definitely going to be feeling the momentum. I'm still worried that they are going to feel like they can't beat GFE, though. And I don't really mean that they can't possibly by player skill level, but a lot of times you'll get these teams that get mental blocks against certain teams. And he mentioned it in his interview. Oh, they were like a kryptonite. And that is not a position of strength to come from mentally when you're trying to get your head in the game.
Right, and then of course on the other side we have Gale Force eSports here, our current reigning North American champions. And of course, they have had that one roster swap as a whole, and B-Kid, the guy right on the very end there. Of course, he's meshed well with the team, one would say, but in their previous series, it didn't go quite as well for them as a whole.
And Gale Force, I'd say we probably have seen the most innovative draft so far in this event. We saw that Leoric Tassadar Abathur, lone support Tassadar, rare enough in its own, especially here in North America. But I'm curious what they're going to pull out here. Obviously, they're well known for pulling out Asmodan. Blackheart's Bay was their game 3 in one of the series earlier, if they went to it. What do you think is going to happen here?
This game, Gale Force should probably look to play more standard. They are already on the knife's edge. This is an elimination match. If they lose this match, they're done. They use their 1 extra life. Now they should just play standard, play what's strong in the meta, because they have the players for it. They don't need to go crazy here. All they need to do is play a solid game plan and use the most powerful heroes instead of getting crazy with it and opening themselves up for weird interactions.
Yeah, I like what you say about like this. That was their 1 life that they lost in the upper bracket, because let's face it, Gale Force eSports comes here knowing that they want to be rivaling for the championship, and so far in this group, have they looked like a championship caliber team to rival the likes of Naventic?
Not at all. Not at all. Compared to Naventic yesterday, GFE has looked much less dominant and much less polished in their games.
And I mean, when we look at their previous series against TNC, obviously they did go 2-0. They brought out some interesting strategies as well, especially on Cursed Hollow. Are we expecting to see more of that if we get onto something like Cursed, or are they just going to kind of, as Dunk says, stick to something more stable, make sure that they survive, and just kind of rethink about what they're going to approach the tournament with in the semis?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what to expect, but the fact that they're already in the head of TNC with the capability of doing kind of that Undying style play gives them a big edge when it comes to the draft alone. But looking at their other drafts, when they ended up going down to Vox, they didn't actually look like they had the upper hand. I mean, I just remember seeing Vox pick that Thrall, and then they just kind of scratched their heads like, oh, that was a pretty early Thrall. Like, what's our response here? And, like, I think they were expecting the Uther or something in that game to pair with ETC, but I really don't know. I just kind of want to see the same thing we saw at a TNC where they went with that full aggro, even though they didn't end up getting the game over Gul'dan's game in game 1. I like that idea of just going in with a very aggressive draft, just kind of setting themselves up, setting the pace of the match.
Did the second game, when they were going up against Fox Neely, just feel like they were trying Double Warrior as opposed to felt comfortable with Double Warrior? Is that something that kind of stood out, or...?
This is definitely something you mentioned while we were on the desk at the time, and we were talking about the draft, and it looked like they just weren't sure what a double composition warrior that looked good was.
Right.
They picked the Muradin really early, right? And we spoke about that, how it was okay on Spider Tomb. He's a good brawler, but he doesn't really bring everything you want to that double warrior.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get it done in that game. So hopefully Gale Force studied Vox Nihili's drafts, because to be honest, I think Vox Nihili had by far and away the best drafting in this group, if not the event so far.
Yeah, it's looked good approaching this group for sure. Let's go into the draft here for game number 1 between these two teams, TNC and GFE, rivaling one another. It will be Battlefield of Eternity for game number 1.
So is this just a snap Illidan pick with those 2 melee assassins being banned out here, or is Battlefield not a good enough map for Illidan?
To be honest, Illidan on this map, I don't really know how good he is, but I do know that Zagara is amazing on this map. So since she's already been a top tier pick, and the Sylvanas pick, this is actually interesting. We know Sylvanas is good here, but Zagara has just been so prominent in this whole event that I'm surprised that they were willing to switch over and first pick that.
Really interesting. All right, well, TNC, Falstad still on the table here. Global presence, Gust, always valuable. There he is. Zagara, as you mentioned, seems pretty likely. But again, we do have to consider those melee assassin roles. With 2 of them already being banned out here, that's not always something you want to slip by. So it's definitely something that's on their mind for this next pick.
Now, since they are playing against a Sylvanas, it's going to be important not to lose the Immortal race. So there's pretty much just a couple ways of dealing with Sylvanas on this map. Either you go all in on winning the Immortal race with the Greymane style composition and don't allow Sylvanas to ever get an Immortal, or you need a team fight composition that can perhaps flank Sylvanas and engage her either after they win the Immortal or while they're trying to kill your Immortal. And they love ETC for that, because you know Greymane's gone, it's going to be hard to raise Sylvanas, especially since they get the next couple picks. So picking that ETC gives you so much kill potential, especially in those fights around your own Immortal where the stuns can just chain so well.
With the Sylvanas and the pushing power already on the side of Gale Force eSports, do they even need something like a Zagara now, or is it still very valuable to them? What do you think?
Zagara definitely loses some value since they already have Sylvanas, I think. On the other hand, Lunara is someone who I think is really good on this map. Even with the nerfed Nature's Culling, I think she's fantastic at killing the Immortal. She's super safe against that ETC. Hard for the Falstad to flank her and kill her. So I would like to see Lunara, but they don't have to pick it yet. They have time to manipulate the draft. Perhaps a support choke if they're interested in doing that, or maybe look at some melee assassins.
Yeah, like Thrall. Thrall seems like a great option here just for the DPS output when it comes to fighting over the Immortals. Uther has been locked in, enabling them for that potential support choke, as you mentioned, going into the ban phase. But how do you feel about Thrall versus maybe locking in Tyrael as a strong warrior or somebody that can be set up for that front line?
Tyrael would be really sweet. He's definitely a solid enabler. You can pick him before you have the tools for him to enable, but you have to be a little concerned. If you pick Tyrael here as Gale Sport, who are you planning to play with it? You need that Sonya or that Greymane, and the Greymane's already banned, and TNC gets the next 2 picks after the ban phase. So they have a lot of room to manipulate what options you have access to.
And it will be Zagara to round things out for that top 3. So as you mentioned during the questions, she loses a little value, but she's still very powerful when it comes to spreading the creep, when it comes to having the vision through the middle of these maps.
All right, well, going into the next bans, obviously TNC, they have that ETC, and this is their opportunity to try to just say, all right, well, we see they have double range. Maybe we can lock out one of those frontline heroes that we're worried about being an issue. Someone that they don't want, because as you mentioned, they will have the next 2 picks after this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially because GFE already has 2 slow sustained damage dealers for their backline, but nothing to protect them. They have to do something to be able to win team fights. Right now, they're all in on the Immortals. If they don't get the Immortal, their composition absolutely falls apart because the Uther just does not have that synergy with the slow fight composition that they currently have. Sonya ban makes a lot of sense here if TNC is looking to play a fast fight and not interested in picking up that second warrior and looking for brawling.
So this must be something like a healer ban, right? Like, they've got the Uther on their side. They want to restrict team name change a little bit. At the same time, are they worried a little bit more about the damage that team name change could bring to the table? Something like Lunar or even a Li Ming coming out, anything like that?
Li Ming would be sweet.
Yeah, I think that's a smart ban. Or Zeratul actually, same kind of impact, right? For that burst damage, looking for the backline. Zeratul's really good at just roaming around and being that constant threat. So Zeratul will be banned out here. On the side of Gale Force, 2 more picks here for TNC. We have, obviously, all the support options. They don't need to lock that in now. What do you think they're going to go for that second front line?
Tyrael is still available for them, so that is absolutely an option. I wouldn't hate to see a Tyrael Li Ming combo come out here, since we know that Gale Force Esports doesn't have the heroes that really punish the Li Ming. They're not going to pick Zul on this map. They only have Zagara to block the skill shots, and Tyrael plus ETC plus Falstad is a really strong combination that provides you a lot of map control and utility. That would be a really strong combination for me. The thing about TNC is they've shown that they're really willing to play Monk. No other team in this tournament has looked as comfortable on Monk, so they can not pick their support until the last slot and then have the choice between Rhaegar and Monk and see which looks better for them.
There's the European in me has to mention this. I know she's fallen off quite a bit as of late, but Tyranda's still actually really good on this map. I know it's quite far down the draft and probably doesn't fit in these compositions, but is there any way, shape, or form it could occur?
It definitely seems like a possibility. It's hard to forget just how good Tyrande was
especially
on this map.
Especially paired with ETC. I mean, the power slide is such an easy setup for the Lunar Flare and gives you a lot of burst potential. And as you mentioned, Hunter's Mark on the Immortal has been excellent, but they do opt to go for that Rhaegar before. I mean, this leaves that last pick reactionary, even though they can be flexible with their support. They just want to see exactly what Gale Force does to round it out and then orchestrate their last either warrior or assassin accordingly.
Yeah, the warrior picks here from Gale Force are pretty much going to decide the flow of the game. We talk about this a lot, but the warriors tend to determine what way the teams initiate team fights and how they flow. So picking something like an Illidan as one of your 2 frontline, you're going to be doing a lot of chasing, a lot of diving. You really want to get onto that backline and threaten it. That Li Ming is especially vulnerable to Illidan because he's one of the few heroes who can easily keep up with her. The risk is, with that ETC, you just have the snap lockdown potential to instantly blow up Illidan.
Could an Arthas be good here? Not only to deny it as a double warrior on the other side, but also to even have Syndragosa.
I mean, they already have Sylvanas, so I don't know if they need the Syndragosa. I actually really
True.
like the idea of Tyrael here to be that dive buddy. They're going for Muradin for that dive buddy. So Muradin, you know, obviously a little bit more aggressive being in a Dwarf Toss and provide the stun, help Illidan get out of bad spots, whereas Tyrael provides the shielding and the movement. I think I personally would have preferred Tyrael, but hey, who am I to say these guys are the ones in the hot seat? In Thrall, rounding out the Orc boys on the side of TNC.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jake, 'cause I forgot that Sylvanas was up at the top. It's very useful for those kind of shutdown potentials. So Thrall rounds things out for team name change, Dunk. What do you make of the comps overall?
Team Name Change's composition has a lot of snap CC that can disrupt Gale Force eSports if they're trying to engage. The thing about Illidan is, in order to deal damage, he has to be in melee range, and he has to stay there.
Yep.
He's not like a Thrall who can throw out the Sundering and then only needs to stay in melee range for 1 or 2 seconds to do damage. Illidan needs to be able to consistently stay in range. So if that D-Shield gets blown early, or if Metamorphosis is popped at an inopportune time, ETC or Thrall can easily force a kill onto Illidan.
Beyond that, though, there's not many of the hard counters that we've seen Illidan have to face off against in our couple of games that we've seen him so far. Like, we've seen Gianna Blinds, we've even seen Lilies, we've seen Arthur's slowing him with the Frozen Tempest, etc. So, beyond what Dunk has mentioned, is there a little bit more room here for Illidan to have some playtime?
Absolutely, and I mean, Sylvanas is there too. So the Wailing Arrow to support his engage as he goes deep, just to nullify that threat of a Sundering, even if you just land that on Thrall, that gives him that space that he needs to pick up the kills, pick up the momentum, because once Illidan finds that first kill and starts rolling, he just cleans up everyone else.
So we're looking at the two drafts as a whole. Obviously, people have got high expectations of GFE to be moving on into the semifinals, but do you think TNC's done pretty well here in the draft, or is it going to be a hard time here for them against GFE?
TNC has done well in the draft. I have to give them that. Their composition looks good. It can definitely win, but I think the burden of execution will just be a little bit too high for this game.
The casters are doing something goofy over there.
So I'm holding
That's
it like
true.
this.
That's true.
I'm holding it like a wine glass, and I didn't even notice. But anyway,
Pinky's out, boys. Pinky's out.
Pinky's. I can't do that with a... whatever.
Tea time over here on the caster couch. Well, anyways, I think TNC has done a really good job in this draft regardless. They do have all the damage output. If it comes to a race, they can definitely beat even the Illidan with that Thrall with the Wind Fairy going forward, especially once they get towards the late game.
All right, so beyond the reigns of Michael Udall going to try and do something, what are you looking forward to, especially onto team name change side of things? Who's going to be your pick here, Dunk?
This game is, I think, going to come down to, like we said before, Goku. The Sunders are just going to be absolutely influential to the max, so that he has to land amazing Sunders. He has to separate the Uther from the Illidan and find a way to kill those targets.
Well, I'm going to send it over to two men here who know a thing or two about the Sunder as we go over to Dreadnought and Jayhow for the commentary.
All right, Dreadnought, this is our last set of the day, and we are looking at a rematch from our first set of the day. Looking at the drafts and looking at the teams, the way TNC has got here, do you think that they have what it takes to take down Gale Force?
I definitely think they have the opportunity. The fact that we saw Gale Force eSports not move into the Tyrael shows that they're afraid to play the character, and because it would excel so greatly, right? Like, think about it. You have the Tyrael to give the mobility, the survivability onto with the Illidan, and then you have the Wailing Arrow as the follow-up. Zagara can put its damaging, counter-respawn, whatever. Muradin does not excel more so than really like a Tyrael in this type of situation, so I think it really shows that they are a bit afraid of that hero here. And Illidan compositions aren't great at the race. They're good at the team fights if you make a major misplay, but I don't think that TNC will make that in this matchup here. And as you see, man, TNC, heavy favor there in the vote.
Getting the love on Twitter is TNC. Gale Force, seems to be people are losing a little bit of faith, but we see TNC coming out. They had the aggressive approach, but with Sylvanas there, and you can see the power slide out by Justin. But Michael Udall on Illidan is going to be the biggest factor, I think, as you were just talking about, how he fits into the team comps, and of course the race on the Immortals.
Yeah, and it's also going to be really interesting to see how the Volatile Acid comes into play at level 1 for Zagara when talking about that race specifically. It will help them out a decent amount. Goku making the rotation to bottom, not going to be able to hit Crowan, or hitting him at his gate more so, not going to be able to get too big of a play here. So the dance that is known as the early phase until the objective spawn has started here. Mike Udall trying to maybe make something happen here on bottom. But overall, I really like, we were talking about this in draft, I really like Team Name Change's composition overall. I thought the Sonya ban was a little weird. but I 100% thought they were going to move into a Thrall-style play with that Rhaegar, and I love what their comp is.
You know, oftentimes we look at this map and we look at the possibility for that poke. Obviously, that volatile acid lends to that extra range, but on the other side, we look at Li Ming poking back at it. You look at those two teams as we get ready for the first Immortal spawn. Who do you think wins that poke war?
When it comes to the poke, as long as Zagara doesn't gain too much value, I really think I give it to Team Name Change. They need to be a bit more passive. As you see, they're already starting the aggressive race here as they go with the 1-4. Illidan is on the race as well. Falsa taking that much DPS, though. They aren't going to be able to get phased. That sets them quite a bit behind as Goku does not thrive in this 1v1 necessarily.
This is kind of interesting. Obviously, Immolation at level 1 lends to a little bit more damage for Illidan, but is he really the one that you want to have solo while you have 4 people defend? I mean, this is kind of a rough spot to be in, but the stun lock on to Thrall there, that's probably what they were looking for.
Yeah, that stun lock was beautiful. Not only was it obviously just getting the follow-up, but then they prepped that around the map objective itself, getting the last stun in there for the team. TNC is already showing very tense play. They're taking very high risks here to try and make sure they win this race, kind of throwing their body at it, and I feel like it shows that they're panicking already here 2.5 minutes into this game. It's not the end of the world, right? Okay, you didn't win the phase, you know? You have breathing room in this matchup here. I'd like to see them be a little bit more calm in their decision-making here as Udal looks to be aggressive, J-How.
I mean, this is something that we don't normally see as the root goes on to Illidan. He's going to have to pop that evasion, but he's going to put a little bit of pressure onto Justin as Crowan is following suit. And this is something we don't normally see from teams. We don't normally see them. We see a lot of trades early on, but Gale Force is looking to, I guess, maybe put the pressure on it. They said they wanted to scare people after the first set. It looks like they're trying to use some of that fear here early on.
Yeah, they are as they get really aggressive. How to win, already taking a lot of damage. Does get the barrel roll out, but he's going to lose his life. That's 1 for 1 here in this trade as the race goes down to 2K for Team Name Change. They're doing a decent amount of job. We see Illidan moving over, actually trying to confirm the kill. Buds does blink away. They get the phase as well, and I think he's going to be able to survive the situation. He gets vision over. The shake comes into play. He will be able to get out here. So that was costing only 2 lives here, but overall, the TNC wins the Immortal phase.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, that is exactly what they wanted. We saw Lightning Bond picked up at level 1 for Rhaegar to get that extra damage, you know, and that's huge for them. So we'll look for that as well as at level 4. We're seeing Triumvirate. That's obviously the reset. If you can get the reset or at least the cooldown on those orbs and I love it because you see the different angles from Li Ming that she's able to use to try and get the splash onto the Immortal and onto a hero. But Hao is under a little bit of pressure, but BKid, he's got to be careful as the rest of TNC starting to rotate over.
Yeah, TNC needs to be a bit more patient when it comes to their aggression on to the Immortal itself, because Gale Force has a composition that's not going to win the race, right? And if they know they're not going to, because of that, they're going to make a large amount of rotations in order to try to deal with TNC getting onto it. And when you have that happen, especially with defensive positioning like you see in the first spawn, but in the second phase, you essentially know that you can just back out, tap, you know, take a breath of fresh air, because it's not like Illidan can solo that quickly overall. So I really want to see TNC be a bit more calm here as Udal goes in, gets a bit of aggression here, but really it's not going to give anybody anything as they back out and just paint the map their team's color.
You know, the biggest thing is, the main thing you pointed out is that if you talk about pure damage of the races, we see the power slide in onto Rafflecopter. Oh my goodness, that haunting wave over to save it.
Yeah, he's going to get the hunting wave to survive there, but there's still a large amount of pressure on the bottom half as there's a 3-2 split here coming out for Gale Force eSports. Sadly, Team Name Change is really not punishing for them at all. They're trying to just get a bit of harass here, but really it's going to be just an even trade. But Raffle barely escaping with his life, as you brought up earlier.
He does play well on Sylvanas. Obviously, it was a first pick Sylvanas. The question is, if you don't plan, it almost seems like they plan on winning the Immortal race by winning the fight against the other team. And that's something that if you have Sylvanas and you don't win that race, that makes it very, very difficult to be able to get true value out of Sylvanas. We've seen her on this map in international play and in NA. Obviously, this is our first chance on BOE, but what you get from Sylvanas with the Immortal is tremendous. But you have to get the Immortal.
Yeah, and they do have the Barb Shot to come into play as well. Banelink style build here for the Zagar. Nobody's actually cleared that camp. Falset's making that rotation. Timing here for both of the camps is very, very good. As long as Gale Force eSports doesn't manage to get a pick off here, I think we're going to be in a fine position for Team Name Change as we see the aggression here already from Udal smelling that out. Tiger's going to be in a really bad spot as he tries to retreat.
He is, and we see Illidan going in. Michael Udal trying to make the plays, and he's able to do just that. The rest of the team followed suit, look for them to drop back and finally get that Immortal we were just talking about. They're trying to win the Immortals by winning the fights, and they're doing just that.
Yeah, and it comes down to the exact same argument we saw a little bit before here as this camp wheels away onto the bottom half. They're going to win the race. patience. You sent the false set up to clear the Shaman camp. You didn't see Gale Force move to clear out your Shaman camp, but they instead still position themselves aggressively, risking a lot, and Gale Force is going to keep punishing them over and over again, right? Like, because they are showing that they're very worried about Gale Force making some major play here. And I mean, even now, it's a defensive positioning. I expect Team Name Change, honestly, to get over-aggressive and punish.
Well, this is what you were talking about, rotating somebody up like Falstad to be able to soak that lane, or to be able to clear in this case. Obviously, it's on the friendly side for both teams. It makes it a little bit difficult to try and push in. Gale Force, they've already shown that they like to be aggressive and they like to fight. But there is Buds right there on Li Ming trying to get that rotation over. But you can see the rotation to the lanes. Is this going to fall out, or at least hold out until level 10 and see who's going to be able to win that race?
It's in Gale Force's best interest to kind of be as patient as possible as long as they're soaking the side lanes. They not only have really good clear, but then also considering the fact that they've done well onto the race, there's not too major amount of poke coming out from TNC quite yet. Li Ming and Falstad are really the only tools. Jiger JK getting very aggressive there. The response now, BKid moving back as Hound wins in a bad spot. Bud's getting damage as well. Udall getting poked out, but Justin is falling rather quickly here, J-How.
That Storm Bolt landed, and then the stun from the Immortal. They were almost able to take it. If that was anybody but ETC, that would have been one dead hero. But so much damage went out. They're turning and hopping right on that Immortal. The double stun coming out. Beacon going in, but Justin with the power slide. They're able to take down Murden, and now all of a sudden Gale Force is on the back foot, but not before they get that Immortal.
Yeah, and Akka is trying to get the retreat here, and Hound does get the barrel roll. Doesn't have mana to really risk pushing in towards that fight. And so Team Name Change, after getting very aggressive and poked down, had to back out there. Did get one pick here, but because the Immortal is going to be spawning there, I mean, it's not that big of a trade here. If anything, it is an advantage for Gale Force. Expect them with their composition. The minute that fort falls, I expect Illidan specifically to be very, very aggressive. Just because he needs to be fighting in those areas where the distance is a little bit small to retreat. That's going to be this largest gap here. But he already goes in, gets a little bit aggro here as Sylvanas is able to disable this for the Immortal.
They're keeping Michael Udall up, who's eating all the shots, but as you said, Sylvanas locking everything down. They've hit level 10. They have Falstad in the top, trying to soak as much as he can. Remember, he can fly down. He takes down that. Look for him to fly down. He'll have Mighty Gust available in case they need the disengage. This is still a very healthy Immortal, just due to the... Actually, he used his flight to get to the top to do that, so he's going to have to go down. Now it's back up. But, and we see Justin on the backside. In comes the mosh pit, but that was...
Wow.
That was interrupted.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, the Divine Shield goes on to BK here as they go 1 for 1 so far in this. Li Ming falling in, as well as Tiger JK here. So what was a sketchy start to the team fight looks very good now for Gale Force eSports as they're knocking onto this keep, J-How, and the aggression going on to Falstad as he falls down. 3 for 1 trade here for GFE.
Hal's gonna fall, and this is the threat of Sylvanas. This is why you pick it on this map. They're able to take this Immortal all the way through a fort, all the way through a keep. They hit their heroics, they came in, and they put the pressure on, and instantly, 9 minutes in, they're gonna have TNC against the ropes for quite a while.
Yeah, and that was such a huge power spike here for Gale Force eSports, now rounding out towards the 13th tier. And they have so much to do on this map. They haven't even really kind of abused the advantage that Illidan can kind of provide when it comes to the team fighting. It's just really been the name of Sylvanas with the Immortal, right? They've gotten pressure elsewhere on the map. I mean, a keep at 9 minutes into the game with the new changes to the minions here. This is very hard for TNC to come back, and with their already panicked play, I only expect that to get worse as this game goes on.
I mean, it's like we talked about it the first few minutes of the game. It's like Gale Force is going to rely on getting a pick or two, and then they're going to hop on the Immortal. They're not going to win it in a pure race. They did just that. Dread, that was 4 levels ago, and all of a sudden we're looking at it keep going down off of 1 pick. That's what it culminated into. It was like the snowball effect. It came down, and everything started coming against Team Name Change, but they're still in it. Level 13 has now been picked up for Gale Force eSports.
Yeah, the 13 power spike is not going to get into them too much in the sense of the race, but it will provide them a lot when it comes to their team fighting. A couple of the heroes on that match have a lot going for them. Will of the Forsaken as well for Sylvanas. Gonna be able to stay alive, maybe not get wrecked by the Thunder or a possible really big gust where we saw them try to pull out in the last team fight, or even the Mosh always gonna interrupt for the Wailing Arrow. So we'll see if he's able to make that happen on the Sylvanas play as we round out. The Shaman camp being picked up for Gale Force is gonna move to the top lane, and the next Immortal phase is gonna spawn in the next 30 or 40 seconds here.
Yeah, it should be here soon, and that's gonna be where we see something try and break. Obviously, we see going in already with that talent advantage. And there's Li Ming poking from afar. 25 seconds, TNC, they better hope for a little bit of RNG on their side. They need to try and get 13 before this next fight.
Yeah, and to look at this already, the aggression from Mike Udall. Fawcett is not going to be with him at this time. We know he's going to want to go to the upper lane to clear the Shaman camp, but very aggressive posturing, knowing that they have a Palantir advantage. We don't see How to Win moving up there quite yet, so the Shaman will be wailing away for a short period of time. This Immortal spawn positioning is huge. Where it goes. All right, so it actually goes in favor of TNC. Very lucky for them, but we're not even going to have them positioned for it. Interesting choice coming out from them. They lose this race very hard because Gale Force's commitment.
So you think that was an opportunity for them, instead of rotating up, to sacrifice a little bit of damage on that fort to at least try and get ahead in this race?
Yeah, I feel like, so because the global is in the upper lane, they can go to the bottom half and worry about getting a bit of delay, get the clear, and then rotate down. Or or they can all just 5-man commit to it and then back out, clear the upper half, but they kept Fawcett up there the entire time. So if you're going to do that, you have to defend, or you send him down and then you clear it afterwards. Either way, they kind of just had a split decision-making, which could have been a good opportunity for them to capitalize. But now they're back on the back foot. They've hit 13 finally here, JL.
I love what just happened there. They sent Udall down to clear that wave. They have catapults pushing. They're in a defensive position. If they can continue to soak against this, they're able to allow those catapults to push and eventually win. Nice cleanse there onto How. And now the Wailing Arrow into the Devouring Ball. Michael Udall going in on the backside. Ancestral does land on the Falstad, and you can see a little bit of a retreat from Gale Force as the Mighty Gust comes out. Justin in, he's stunned, but the power slide is coming in now. Akaface forced to use the Divine Shield on himself.
Yeah, that not being used onto the Illidan here is going to put them on the back foot. They're all withdrawing here as their health bars have fallen a bit lower. They need to try and force their advantage as best they can. Udall still has a Metamorphosis up, excuse me. 3 catapults are moving into the core. This early in the game, they will be able to threaten a bit. Honestly, this is a bit of an overcommitment of resources. The fact that 3 people are going to be backing out, that is the only time frame that we've seen TNC have an advantage, and they commit 2 to 3 people back over what would have taken, at best, 5 to 10% of your core. I really feel like I would have liked to see them worry more about the Immortal, because I promise you, Sylve with that Immortal is going to be doing far more damage than 5 to 10%.
Well, all the heroics are down with the exception of Disintegrate and Metamorphosis. So we'll see how this fight plays out. As we saw the priority, it looks like Illidan rotating back over to do the exact same thing, to clear this wave out, allow for those catapults to push. If anything draws out, then that lends in favor of Gale Force. As we see Tiger JK trying to clear up at the top, it's going to be a matter of who's going to clear that backside. This is a tough position for TNC to be in.
It is a tough position, as we see Falstad is moving back up there. We only have 6,000 health left on the Immortal here. So Justin is trying to make something happen. We don't even have Falstad in this position. A large amount of damage. Sunder's only going to hit 1 target, but it puts Crowan out of position. Gus is coming in play as well, and he gets deleted here, Jay.
They're able to follow up on that. Akaface is going to be the next to fall. He does have heals, but Wailing Arrow was used. Rafflecopter forced the Haunting Wave over. Beacon and Michael Udall trying to stay on the Immortal. They need to try and salvage this. Justin very low. Michael Udall is going to be the next to fall, but that Immortal was picked up. Despite the fact that they lost 3, they still got that, and that's a pretty healthy Immortal, at least to buy them time.
It is a healthy Immortal, at least reasonably so. There's only going to be 2 targets up. It's the only shining, silver lining really when it comes to that team fight, or at least what's the case that they're left with now, is that Gale Force has Sylvanas still alive, which means it's still going to be very difficult to clear. If Sylvanas was one of the few that was dead, it would be a free clear very quickly here for them, so they're going to be trying to get as much DPS. This fort will slowly but surely fall down for their team. It was a moment where TNC just, if they had, I don't know. I don't know how to talk about appropriately how they should have approached that situation. Yes, it was good. As Tiger JK actually getting stunned out here. The Mosh Pit, the cleanse as well. TNC is now going to be losing this team fight. The one-man mob with the Gust, JL, what's happening?
I don't know. That Ancestral, I feel, was intended for Thrall there. Or excuse me, that was Tiger JK that went down. Falstad the next to fall. Now Bud's in all kinds of trouble. Oh my goodness, the Dwarf Toss over with the stun. That is heavy impact. I don't even think it mattered, but it made the impact that it did as 3 heroes go down. Everybody's still alive for Gale Force. Can they take this? Are they going to push in? They're posturing, Dread.
Yeah, they are posturing. Gus is not going to be up for 30 seconds here. Falstad won't be up for 20 along with Li Ming. They shouldn't be able to end the game at this point. Illidan's good, but they don't have enough tools available. Sundering is a pretty solid response as well, so they're just going to back out, use the double keep here and the double threat that's going to be happening with the catapults. But I think the most important thing about this is that we already saw TNC overreacting to those catapults. They're only going to get stronger, and now they're doubled in strength, so that reaction is going to draw so many people back that I feel like these next few phases you're going to watch Gale Force just bait and buy time. As long as you don't 5-man wipe, Gale Force really can't lose this, at least for 2 to 3 more Immortal phases.
Dread, when you have to use a Mosh, to try and save a Rhaegar just by zoning.
Feels bad, man.
That's never a good thing, and that's exactly what we saw. TNC, all it takes is one fight to really turn this around. The problem is they haven't got a lot of structure damage in. We see the bottom fort has a little bit, and that was that heavy impact that we saw up in the top. But, you know, there's just so much I feel that TNC still has to do. As you said, we've already seen the posturing. The minute Gale Force decides to drop back and clear a lane, they just clear a path for the catapults. And as you said, the overcommitment back, it seems like TNC just needs to realize this, focus their resources. They have ball set, make use of that.
Yeah, they've been doing a reasonable job when it comes to the Sunder coming into play and trying to make a pick happen with the Leeming after that point. I really feel like they need to make sure they make that happen, but onto a minimum of 2 targets. Ignoring the Illidan, I think, is in their best interest for the beginning half of the team fight and then dealing with him afterwards. They just can't wait until they lose the early stages of the Immortal, right? Last time we saw that, the minute that happened, it didn't matter because they were so far behind, they were able to still lose the race here. So now instead, I would like to see them during this phase, this is where they need to be aggressors as they have 16-5.
Yeah, they need to be aggressive, but they can't wait to be aggressive. There's a couple of camps pushing to the top, but they've already brought out the Sundering, and we see Michael with Goku,
goodness.
very deep. Goku in a very bad position.
Wow.
The Ancestral does not land. The wave, Akaface making the play.
He's got it from downtown. That is a kill here for Akaface. Now Justin is the one onto the tree here. Power Slide's going to go out there, and Metamorphosis is going to put them onto the chase here, J-Hal.
Ancestral is used, but that is on ETC, and now how in all kinds of troubles Metamorphosis is there. Buds is not going to be able to survive. He is going to be able to survive, but not for long. Buds with 10 health. It's a matter of time. The heal is there. Ballstat goes down. Buds is somehow still alive, but not much longer. Dread, I think this is the beginning of the end. Catapults and company are on the core.
That's going to be it here. Gale Force eSports, in a rather convincing manner here, are going to take game number 1 in what is an elimination match here and be able to make it onto day number 2. But already the major thing that I see here, we saw it from TNC in the last series, but in the back half of the game, every time they're against Gale Force eSports, it seems like the first 10 minutes, they are panicked. They seem afraid of their opponents, to be completely honest.
I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. I mean, I just want to go back to that one pick on the Immortal phase in the bottom. They got that one pick and they rotated it over to the Immortal. That led to that keep going down, and Gale Force never let their foot off the pedal.
Yeah.
They just kept it. They kept the pressure on, and TNC was never able to recover.
No, it was very can't stop, won't stop, but we're going to see what our panelists have to say after that amazing match on Battlefield of Eternity.
That's right, thank you. Game number 1 going up to Gale Force eSports there, and it seemed like here on Battlefield of Eternity, they had some good control throughout the middle and able to get both of those keeps. Some good start there for Gale Force.
Gale Force definitely looked a little more controlled than they were before.
Yeah.
They didn't have the problems that they were exhibiting earlier. They did manage to close out this game at least, but they played really safe. They abused their advantage, which I do like. That last team fight, though, the Sunder only hit Sylvanas, and then the Uther Cleanse, and then the amazing wave of light that just happened to kill Thrall. That was so heartbreaking to see.
Let's take a look at some of the replays as well from that game, as there are quite a few little moments there that we had to enjoy here from Gale Force going up against TNC.
Well, I mean, honestly, we saw the control throughout the game. Some early plays from TNC. Overall, TNC looked better than I expected in this matchup. I mean, coming in, showing a sign of life, but Gale Force, they got the better trades left and right, and they earned themselves these Mortals, which guaranteed themselves that early keep.
The early advantages definitely added up for Gale Force. The fact that they could get all of that pressure early game was really impactful. It meant that even though some of these later fights were sloppy, and Gale Force actually got killed quite a few times, nothing ever came of it because TNC couldn't capitalize.
That was my favorite moment of the game, by the way, where Zagara just got mashed around like a pinball. She got sundered, then into the stun from the boss, then into a gust, and then dead. Sad,
You're a cruel man.
I'm masochist, what can I say? All right, well, and then, of course, Illidan kind of finishing things off towards the end. I think one thing that really stands out for me when I watch Gale Force is that actually Michael Udall on his Illidan doesn't need much support behind it, or much of the traditional support behind it, to actually make it work.
Multiple times we saw him actually not taking the D shield, not even needing like a cleanse. He basically just waits and picks his engages until all of the major threats are down. And that was something we were talking about before the game, actually, where, yeah, the Sunder is a threat. The Mosh Pit is a threat for Illidan. Those are both really dangerous. But if he just waits and stays on the flanks and gets a little bit of value here and there, but once the big ults are down, boom, go in, actually clean up the fight.
Yeah, really just good control. We've seen them on Illidan a lot, and they've looked really strong on the pick. So obviously that's going to be something that they have to think about on the side of TNC for Ben moving forward into the next game.
And then, of course, they've got a guy like B-Kid, who is still rocking the Muradin and still making it work quite nicely, despite the unstoppable change coming in or whatever. It's even able to secure him some interesting kills. As I say, using that heavy impact, he's able to land that initial stun, as you were mentioning whilst we were watching the games, to then just guarantee himself that next stun. And it does actually follow up for some nice kills during these games.
Yeah, it was used to pretty good effect there. I was surprised because coming into this event, I was expecting to see a lot of give him the Axe Muradin, since that allows him to be such a bruiser. It really transitions him from the primary tank role to the bruiser. Along with that healing static, he becomes really durable, but also threatening to the backline. And instead, in this solo tank composition, B-Kid using him purely as a tank initiator, the heavy impact makes a lot of sense there, since it just guarantees the stun, especially in a situation where you can use it to make an immortal stun land.
And our next map will be Sky Temple between these two teams. And we saw this as the first map in their first series, actually, where GFE ran kind of, to be honest, a similar style composition to what we just saw, with that Illidan not having some of the traditional support tools available to him, and was able to do work against TNC. So, as you mentioned, is TNC now going to have to take that into account and maybe ban out the Illidan again?
Honestly, I think so. I mean, it's not like that's going to necessarily shut them down entirely. Michael Ulol has a monstrous pool of heroes that he can pull from, but right now he's just 2 on point, 2 on fire with that Illidan play. Like you said, not needing the Divine Shield, not needing the cleanse oftentimes in these fights, playing very passive, but at the same time poking in, trying to bait out some abilities, trying to buy some attention, constantly just being something on their mind. If they can eliminate that from the pool of things. But the thing is here is they've already shown they're more than happy to run Abathur. There's many other melee assassins or similar heroes that can have that strong impact. And I am also worried about Abathur being a strong hero on the side of Gale Force here.
Absolutely. Their Abathur looked very good. They got a huge advantage from it. And in that composition, the Undying composition, as Dredd likes to say, it just looked insane. I mean, this is another big map, Sky Temple, where Abathur can get a lot of value. And if they're going to force TNC to ban the Illidan, that might leave the Grey Mane open, which would be great for GFE. Yeah. Because if they could secure that Grey Mane Abathur, they'd easily crush the game.
Something that I do want to ask you about is the fact that TNC has now played 3 games against GFE, and they have lost 3 times. With their current approach to draft, with their current approach to their opponents, regardless of what it is, does TNC have something that is an X factor now going into the next game? Do they have something that is going to be catching them off guard in this draft? Are there any things in the realm of possibility that you can think of here for them? Because otherwise, if they go the same route, they're probably just going to die, right?
It's tough because I was talking about that like really ham style that we saw in game 1 versus Gul'dan's game, but that style composition doesn't really work on Sky Temple to the same effect. It's a much larger battleground, much easier to just kind of play ring around the rosy and avoid them as they try to collapse on you. I'm not really too sure what they have up their sleeves, but this is when they have to pull it out, that's for sure.
Up their sleeves. I don't know. TNC has just played really standard so far. So I would be surprised if they had anything. My guess is they came to this event knowing they were underdogs and just wanted to play the best they could with the standard meta, because that's one of the ways an underdog can get advantage. They don't work on crazy strategies. You don't do silly stuff. You just spend all your time focusing on excelling at the traditional game.
All right, well, Illidan ban did come in from Team Name Change. They were able to respect it. They knew it was good on Battlefield of Eternity, and they knew from experience in the last series it was good against them on Sky Temple, so not going to take any risks.
How do you feel about this Snap Uther pickup? I mean, obviously Uther has seen great success throughout this event. I mean, with the changes they've made, the cleanse, the Divine Shield, he has all the options in the world. But to suddenly just prioritize him like that?
It makes perfect sense if their next pick is Greymane. That's the only way that this makes sense. Picking the Uther with the Zagara, I mean, we saw it work last game, but does it really justify the immediate Uther pick?
I think surely isn't it the idea of they were always going to take him in the 2 to either deny or they just have it anyway. So it's like, well, okay, we'll take it first and then just think about it.
And suddenly TNC has global presence, Greymane, which is the burst and the sustain, and Thrall, who is that really strong solo laner, which also provides insane initiation. That's a pretty good pickup there on the side of TNC.
Absolutely, I like the combination. Thrall's Sunder can definitely set up for Greymane. It's one of the best initiation tools in the game, or counter initiation. And because of the way Sunder tends to split up the enemy team, it actually protects you a little bit from Maw, since you don't tend to get clumped up as much when you're chasing down those targets, as compared to, say, another initiation like a Mosh Pit or something where your whole team runs in to try to follow up on the ETC and can get Mawed.
Looking at how the draft's gone so far, though, with Tyrael being banned, it seems that Team Name Change has changed a little bit of their drafting strategy against Gale Force, because in the past couple of games that they've gone up against them, they've had, you know, warriors mixed in there, some of their supports mixed in there, and some of their first picks. But this is like full aggression. We want the damage that we want. We're going to prioritize that, and we don't really necessarily care too much about the other roles.
Right, and that's exactly why you see Tyrael being banned out, because Tyrael just enables that initiation to be even safer with the Sanctification. Great ban from Gale Force. ETC, a safe warrior. Haven't seen a ton of ETC on the side of Gale Force, but still going to be removed here. You think this is enough to just force B-Kid back into that Muradin once more?
I mean, it worked last game. It seems totally reasonable for them to just pick up Muradin again here. I mean, they can run back the exact same composition if they want.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sylvanas not as good on this map as Battlefield of Eternity, so you could easily change that for like a Li Ming, which would be great here, follow-up for that Muradin engage, and the Uther can protect both of them from the Greymane engage. Now that Tyrael is out of the question, the Greymane composition gets a lot weaker since they don't have that guaranteed safety field in the fight.
Especially since they picked up the Uther first, right?
Well, considering how divey they are, should they be thinking about like second warriors in this matchup? Would you want to go for, oh, there it is, Sonya locking in for that second frontliner. A lot of sustain for them. Actually, their team in general is pretty tanky.
Absolutely. There's a lot of health on Gale Force's side. Even Zakara, one of the tankier range heroes, Uther, super tanky. Team Name Change is going to have to find a way to pick apart this team. You don't really want to run headfirst into Sonya, so it's going to come down a lot to the Gusts, I think, to try and mess up the positioning of Gale Force and cause them to allow you to focus fire the targets you want to hit.
All right, one more pick for Team Name Change to be their support, and it will be Karazim here. So to support the pretty heavy front line once Worgen comes into play.
Another game where Rhaegar just kind of goes unnoticed. It's just kind of the preference here. Tiger JK loves that Karazim. He's shown, you know, just a very, very great play on that throughout the game, throughout the day. And we're now down to that very final pickup. Ranged Assassin, probably going to be picked up here for Gale Force if they want to be able to pick up the kills at all.
I mean, to be honest, Jake, I've seen enough Rhaegar in the past 6 months to last me a lifetime, so I'm okay with this, right? No?
That is true. Okay, if you're picking Monk here, I really hope you're going a seven-sided strike. We've said this time and time again, but this time, there can be no denying you have a Muradin, you have a Sonya, both very, very high health pool targets that you want that seven-sided strike for. It just seems like the clear choice. Picking it over Rhaegar makes a lot of sense since you don't have good ancestral targets. Thrall, medium health pool, hard to hit the nice ancestrals. Johanna doesn't get a ton of value out of that ancestral healing. So picking the Karazim makes a lot of sense because it gives you more initiation on the map. Anytime you catch out a Muradin or a Sonya, a lot of the time they'll walk away. Not if you have seven-sided strike.
But we haven't seen him run seven-sided yet, have we?
It's all been palms, I think. Yeah.
It's all been palms.
All been palms. I mean, even on Greymane, like, palm isn't necessarily the super go-to, I suppose, because once, as Greymane, when you get that, you are in stasis for just a moment, which means that your opponent's team can prepare to actually, like, maybe just jump straight onto you as soon as you actually pop from the palm anyway. So it's not ideal in that situation.
I figure if I keep calling the seven-sided strike enough, eventually I'll be right one time.
Well, I mean, if we were in Europe or Korea, you'd be right every time, but over here, not so much. Well, unless it's Splendor. Even he does the seven-sided strike.
No, we do see a good mix, I think, in NI, depending on the player.
Yeah.
But Tiger JK has just really been leaning towards that palm as often as possible. And we'll see. Will he go full ham sandwich? Dunk Train is calling for them to go for that, to have the blow up for the Warriors. That, like you said, they get a bit secluded, especially the way they tend to play. B-Kid alone. He always is sitting there all by himself, buying as much time as possible, stalling out for that dwarf toss. And we actually saw him get punished a few times in the last game due to that.
I'm worried that they're not going to be able to get through this comp. You mentioned after fourth pick here, the lineup here for Gale Force eSports is quite beefy. Li Ming is going to be a hard target to get to here for sure, unless we can see how actually fly on forwards and maybe get some damage on it. Dunk, what are you thinking about these comps? Do you think Team Name Change has the X factor here to keep themselves alive?
I see more of the same here. honestly, I see more of the same from Team Name Change. They have the standard stuff that they've been playing. Teams have been giving them this Falstad, and they haven't done enough with it for me to believe in them in this match.
All right, well, thank you very much, boys. We're about to head over to the commentary team here for game number 2. GFE is 1 game away from advancing on to the semifinals. Dread and Jhow, take it away.
Well, Dreadnought, Gale Force said they have BlizzCon aspirations, and they need to make their way out of this group stage, fighting their way out of the losers bracket. Standing in front of them, TNC. Do they have what it takes to take a game off of Gale Force?
I think they do. Again, this composition is not as convincing as maybe the last one was. It seemed like they struggled very heavily with dealing with the Illidan, especially Falstad not there in a majority in the engagements, but hopefully they step it up. I really do think a lot of it's going to come down to how to win. As Dunk put it, they've done this over and over again. It hasn't been too impressive. For being the first pick character, I've never looked at his gust, his flight, even just a massive boomerang. I've never looked at it and been like, that was the reason you first picked this hero. So I really want him to try and prove it here in this matchup that it's going to be worth it for them. And other than that, it's a very standard comp for Gale Force.
Well, we're going to find out if he can pull that off. This is their tournament lives on the line, Dread, and this is going to be interesting to see the rotations, how they manage this. We do see Thrall versus Zagara in that bottom lane. We've seen a lot of Zagara play. We're seeing a little bit more traditional with the corpse feeders this time around for Zagara at level 1. Anything that we see there as opposed to something like Infest or the volatile asset that we've been seeing throughout the day?
So far here for the North American Regional, we've seen a lot of her E or a Q talent, not so much Infest. I think we've only seen it really in one situation. Speaking of needing to see the flight, we see How to Win going to the bottom lane here, already using the barrel roll as he gets stunned out here. Will he be able to survive this situation? One more auto attack drop. It will go down. Rafflecopter confirming the kill there. What happens when the worm kills the bird?
That's an interesting paradox there, Dread. I have no idea. But it is now time for our first temples to spawn. They're going to be here in the middle and the top. Of course, Falstad should be able to get back. Actually, he used his flight to go down there. You talked about that, and he used it, and it was kind of awkward. They didn't secure the kill that they wanted to. But level 3 picked up here. They seem to be trading right now. Do we see one of these teams rotate over, or are they going to even trade? That's the curious part here during this first temple phase.
I think because both of their laners, solo laners on the bottom half here are so scary, I would expect to see a trade. I do feel like TNC has a bit of a better early game, largely because you're depending on major poke and resets, unless Sonya gets just a legendary spear flank onto somebody. So trading is in the best interest for Gale Force, and I don't think TNC has an advantage when it comes to the shots on the upper half to even try to make that rotation if they wanted to. So right now, it's going to be the dance of Sky Temple going blow for blow, even trades across the board.
You know, one of the cool things that we've seen quite a bit, especially with some recent Sonya changes and everything going on, Hurricane at level 4, obviously you talk about the roots that can come in from somebody like Thrall to be able to get out of there and to keep Michael Udall active. He is best when he's aggressive, and when you take that talent, it does lend to a little bit more aggression. So we'll see how that goes. A pretty even trade here, Dread. We had that one kill, and that's pretty much all the action that we've seen so far. Both teams willing to commit a little bit to the lane soak early game, just a few minutes in.
I actually really like this choice by TNC. When you don't have the better sieging composition, which outside of Falstad there isn't too many, and honestly he's going to be in the top lane anyways, taking the Giants early and then timing your Knights sending Falstad because you have the global and you don't have a very good siege, whereas Gale Force taking the Knights early and then a Giants early to siege with it, is typically what I like to see in the Sky Temple rotation here. So I like the fact that TNC has already took a step in that direction where they're going to be able to send the Falstad to split. I just hope they don't cap this too early because we have at least another minute and a half before this happens. So losing a lot of value at could have been a split push here in the later part of this game.
Yeah, Dread, what you're talking about is that next temple phase spawns at the very bottom. It allows that Bruiser camp to try and get some work done, especially when you have a hero like Falstad. You can escort them up there. It makes it very tough for somebody to defend, and they cap that really early.
Yeah, and it puts it in a position where it's either going to be an early clear, or you could make the argument that maybe they expected Gale Force not to be able to adapt to the situation efficiently in time. But if that was the case, they would just send 2 people bottom with Zagara, who's a great laner, and just push with the Giants to gain more value than the Knight rotation that we see out on the side of TNC. So it's not that it's even that major of a misplay. It's more of just maybe not gaining as much as they could have. I like to see that whenever you have the global advantage. But for now, Gale Force is going to have the better timing here on the Merc camps, a slight upper hand. And you were talking a bit about the talents here. We see a triple condemn build, which is going to give her the mobility and the CDR depending on how many targets are hit. She has insane wave clear on her own. when that happens. I kind of enjoy the build. It's a little bit weird. It used to be very common in Korea, died out midway through Super League Season 2.
Well, we see a little bit of aggression in the bottom. Iron Skin being popped by Johanna. Of course, the cooldown reduction that we'll be seeing there, as you were talking about, at level 4. So we'll see how that plays in the team fights. And speaking of team fights, Wizen Duelist picked up by Greymane. Got to keep him alive, and you have to be able to get kills. Something they had a little bit of trouble doing of both in game number 1. So I'm curious how that comes out. But Temple, the second Temple is out. Tiger JK taking a lot of damage on the backside.
Yeah, and again, we see Fawcett in the upper half of the map trying to clear the Giants that were appropriately timed. Doesn't finish the entire thing and hasn't made the rotation here. So right now, TNC is just flat out getting out-rotated in this game here as he makes his way to the bottom half of the map. Look at the health bars already falling very low. Justin falling down a lot, but Beacon is on the back foot as well. Q is not going to hit there from the Fawcett, and they do gain posturing around the shrine, but keep in mind, everybody's just going to tap, expect GFE to get the re-engage.
Yeah, to be able to get that re-engage is huge, and I'm pretty sure the well is down on the side of TNC, which makes it a little bit tough for them to fall back on. That's a huge, crucial point that you made there, and that's allowing GFE to basically come in. Tiger JK staying on point. He'll be able to Radiant dash out. Hal should be able to barrel roll as needed, but they got to be careful as Thrall gets caught in there, and now Johanna seems to be the next target, but Bud's caught in the middle as well. Bear's growing, doing the damage. The Dwarf toss in, not able to secure that kill. But awkward positioning right now for TNC.
Yeah, they're in a rough spot there. Fawcett, or excuse me, Karzim staying a bit too long onto the shrines, getting DPS down. I can only imagine if Krone was able to get one reset in that situation, how ugly that could have gotten for them. But now, Gale Force eSports pulling ahead here with the first fort of the game. They have a half-level lead, experience advantage, and I can't help but feel like a lot of this, again, is just kind of that fear or poor rotations here in the early game. Again, they could have gained possibly, what if they didn't have to take that fight, for instance? They could have taken those Giants, been getting that split push, maybe take the fight down later. And I feel like this is kind of the story of these two teams, GFE versus TNC. It's just GFE doing what they want and TNC praying they stay on even footing and have a better team fight.
I mean, it just seems like TNC is so close. I mean, if they get that one pick, that one kill, they can make something happen. It just seems like, I don't know whether it's the nerves or whether it's just an uncoordinated assault that they're trying to get in there. One thing I want to ask you, we see Zagara holding on to that heroic, finally Maul coming out. Was that something that they were waiting to see on the side of Team Name Change, or was that just a delay?
I think it was a little bit of just double checking to make sure they got everything wanted to actually really good isolation here onto Udall. Going to get the pick. I'd like to see them confirm a little bit of structures, capitalizing on the man advantage that they have on this map. But we've seen on some of the larger maps, Nidus Network being a go-to. I don't mind it as much on this map specifically, but I think concentrating on your team fight, Crowan actually getting caught out, forcing the D-Shield is go for the throw's going to be used, but the flight and the guts, he blinks away from it here. It will lose his life, though, and most likely is the heal going to come off cooldown. He stays alive, he gets the blink away. I cannot believe he survived that situation.
That was huge. The Force Armor at level 1 allowed him to stay alive to mitigate some of that damage that was coming in. The baited D-Shield, though, is now we see B-Kid going in hard. The rest of the team starting to catch up. Look for Rafflecopter to try and get them all, as Justin is going to fall. So Johanna goes, the Maul completely misses their Dread.
Yeah, the Maw didn't land, but honestly, as long as it doesn't come into a problem in the next team fight here, they're going to be all right as they now knock onto the front wall. Giants on the bottom half of the map. Shrine's going to be spawning as well, and right now the trade is going to be in favor of Gale Force eSports. They really don't need to be forcing any of the fights as they have an XP advantage, and if they get any structural advantage here as well, it's only going to help these next shots for their team. Such a great response to what was, it looked like it was going to be an ugly situation for Crowan.
I mean, you said, hey, you guys need to get a little bit of structure damage. I feel like they overcommitted the minute Li Ming. I mean, they were so close. That's what I was saying just a minute ago. They're so close. Imagine if Akapace was one step off, or they just had one extra attack. That would have been a dead Li Ming and 2 kills to 0. Instead, they're back on the back foot, forcing to defend here.
I think a good metaphor for what it must feel like if you're TNC trying to play into Gale Force eSports is like, you know when you're on Li Ming and like your team has just got everybody about 5% health, maybe like 1 auto attack away, and you're like, dude, if I could just get that, like if your teammate could just murder and auto attack that one dude just one time, I can 3 orb, like kill the whole team. That's TNC for an entire 15 minutes in every match. It's just like, if I could just get a reset.
TNC, synonymous with Li Ming. Confirmed.
They are the Li Ming of Heroes of the Storm here so far. Trading shots between the teams, it is going to be a minor advantage for Gale Force in the sense that they could make a rotation at some point, but right now they have a lot of shots in their favor. 3 forts are going to be falling for them, only 2 on the side of TNC.
Well, we see the structure damage, Dread, that you were talking about. That is the last fort going down on the side of TNC. Of course, this can be a map that you can win solely based off of the objective, which is these temples. The experience, though, pretty much dead even, just a little bit of a jump there for Gale Force. So TNC staying in the game in terms of experience, maybe not necessarily there just yet in structure damage. So they always have a chance in a team fight. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to make those plays happen? You know, when we look at the heroics there and we see Karazim with that palm, I feel that that's explicitly for that gray main, because the fact that he went Wizen, you need to be able to keep him alive at all costs, else that talent is a complete wash.
Yeah, that's going to be a main source for them. They want to make sure that he's going to be enabled as best as he possibly can. Not one of the best targets. They've been getting aggressive here, using Bludgeon Shield and Sundering. He's just going to get the cleanser from Akaface in turn here. What is a 4 versus 4 now. Cronin trying to make sure he gets a reset. Minion's going to be in the way for the time being, but it looks like Gale Force is in hot pursuit here over TNC.
Michael Yudo, of course, he likes to stay aggressive. He gets in there, but unfortunately, they weren't able to get the stun that they needed to be able to get the follow-up, to be able to get those resets from Li Ming. Instead, they're going to rotate to the top, clear up this camp. It just seems like all the camps that TNC is getting, not necessarily getting huge value, but they do see that Zagara went up top. That's going to allow them to go ahead and invade the siege camp here in the bottom right.
I mean, let's be honest here, it was a bit hasteful to bust the Sundering out here with the Blessed Shield onto a Murden. Like, I don't even know if he needed the cleanse, to be completely honest. He did have a team with him, but even if he was by himself, Avatar with Dwarf Toss alone, I think would have got him out of that situation here. So TNC, they know they're on the back foot. They know they need to be making a play. I just feel like that is the last target you want to be worried about. I would even, anybody else but him here, if they've been caught out, they could make something happen. But for now, they do back out, catch a Zagara off in the poor rotation here, end up evening up, almost even at least, the map objectives when it comes to structures. XP only slightly ahead for GFD.
Well, you know, one of the things that I heard you say, and as well as Dunk over on the panel, was landing those Sunders to be able to get good value out of that Thrall and Goku to be able to play. But we also talked about how, so far, both of those, they're the big playmakers when you talk about the Gust, when you talk about the mobility, and when you talk about the Sundering. So far, we haven't seen that yet. Do they have it in them? The next temple is going to spawn here in about 15 seconds, and that is going to be a solo temple that it's basically going to force TNC to fight. Both teams probably hoping for 16. I don't think they're going to get there in time, so we're going to see how this plays out.
Falset is making this rotation. His team is not going to be winning the experience race. He needs to make sure, there we go, he gets some of the soak in the side lanes because he has the global gear as the teams are almost halfway through for both sides. I would be far more worried about the fight to 16 or race to 16 here than I am the team fight for the time being. We do see TNC though being very aggressive, even though Falset is in the mid lane. I feel like this is bold posturing. They've done this all last game. Falset's not with them, but they're looking to get aggressive as he moves in for a big gust.
The gust is there. Crowan and Beacon on the backside. The Sundering does come in. Crowan goes down as we see Buds coming in strong on Greymane. Rafflecopter the next to fall. And now we see the Dwarf Toss over by Beacon trying to return some of that aggression. How in a lot of trouble, but now Udall and Beacon not able to secure the kill. B-Kid goes down.
That's going to be a boss here and the bottom shrine all going in favor of TNC from a huge play. I was just calling out how to win for the lack of making something happen there, that the entire last game he was isolated and they were doing nothing with it. And right as I say that, he goes, Dread, check this out. A huge gust isolating the backline there and now setting a TNC for the first time having control in this match.
This is a huge amount of control. The boss, they're going to be able to get the temple. There's so many shots there. We see the rotation already over, trying to get those waves clear to be able to get max value out of this boss that's now pushing in the bottom lane, and this is going to put a lot of pressure. I'm not sure if they can get a keep here, Dread, but the fact that they're starting to gain control of the map is huge.
Yeah, they're in a really pretty position for the time being. Even Hal could make, he's not going to do it. He could take a step off, let the boss take the front wall, and then gain value out of the shots later on. It's a little risky play here, but instead they're going to just wail away at it as best as they possibly can. Shots are going down. They're getting damage into it. They aren't too afraid of any team fight for the time being. Global should be up here for the Falstad, and it will not get the keep, I don't think. No, it will.
The last two temple shots. Yeah, I was going to say, I was actually wondering why they're staying in here. Tiger JK taking a ton of damage. The Sundering in return. Michael Udall is very low, being forced to retreat. Remember, B-Kid, no more unstoppable. He gets locked down. So much damage coming in. Akaface forced to retreat, and we see TNC, if they could have got another pick or two there, they were looking to posture to get those kills, but they're forced back.
And this is where TNC bites off too much. If they keep playing the way that we saw them in the last series, they get the lead here. And the worst case is this is the map that you don't have to do anything. they have a structural advantage over their opponents, they have an XP advantage over their opponents, and they have the global too in case mobility and rotations are going to be a problem here. All they need to do is make proper rotations and play the team fight that they know they have the upper hand in here for now. But we saw in the last series here that this is where they struggle. They're going to get very desperate and possibly move in for a drastic play. So I want to see TNC keep their head in the game, calm down a bit here, because right now, it's their game to lose.
They're in a good spot. I mean, they've turned this game around in the last few minutes, and you called it exactly what they have to do. That keep down is going to put constant pressure for the rest of the game. With Hal there, he made his play. The Sunderings have come out. Both guys have answered the call. They're going to need to do it again, and a possible invasion rotating over here, Dread.
Yeah, and see, this is desperation. Gale Force realizes they can't wait this game out, so they're trying to make a very aggressive rotation, catching Justin out here. Palm is still available. Gus is going to isolate 3 of the backline here, but no aggression here for TNC. That was honestly a smart play here for them, only using the Gust. It's going to be a short cooldown, and again, they aren't risking anything. It's a 2-level lead with a structural advantage. This is the dream if you are in TNC on this map.
Well, Gale Force is a little bit lucky here because level 20 is still just a little ways off for TNC. 2 temples are going to come up. Gale Force is either going to have to force themselves to defend, grab a temple, get some value out of it, and they better hope that 20 doesn't get picked up in the middle of all this by TNC, because that could be very troublesome. They're going to recognize that Roppelcopter is going to be at the bottom cleaning up. Do you think they're going to try and invade here?
The most important thing is they move in for vision during this time. This is a smart play from them. It's a large influence on the control over the shots here. The fact that B-Kid is not going to be able to make the rotation for the time being to maybe threaten a fight here shows that they're being overly patient. Gale Force here, this is one of the last fights they're going to be able to get, taking out the front wall to give them a little bit more of a spike into the advantage, closing in on 20. They now move in. Keep in mind, no vision control. I would expect TNC make the rotation to the top because they don't have vision, but it seems a bit slow here that nobody's postured that direction except for the Falstad.
I mean, the fact that they're rotating down looking for the fight, we see Falstad rotating back, trying to soak up a little bit. They are dangerously close to level 20. Gale Force has to recognize that. They're already pinging. We see the ping for danger saying, B-Kid, hold on, buddy, get out of there. But this is a huge moment. Level 20 now picked up for TNC Dread.
Yeah, 20 is such a big power spike here for them. With them finishing the shots in the upper half of the map here, it will not be able to take the keep because the keep gate is still available. It's giving breathing room for Gale Force. They're now going to have a lot of time to be able to try and experience Soak and catch up to level 20. Honestly, I would have liked to see TNC try and force the fight with this 20 advantage here. Maybe they're going to do it at this keep, but again, Falstad's not going to be there for at least 20 seconds worth of capturing the shrine. If I'm Gale Force, I take this fight.
I mean, it seems like the likely choice, but TNC recognizing, hey, we don't need to get too aggressive.
Yeah.
They almost got too greedy on that bottom keep. They are poking. Last few shots not going to be enough, but the damage is done. Are they going to try and put the pressure in? They have that Talontier advantage. Falstad seems to be rotating down, and they see Udall in the bottom. Yeah, that's a free keep.
Udall's not going to be able to make it for a couple of seconds here. They are grouped up very heavily for him all. Will Roffer look for it? Look at that collapse.
There
That's a through 2-man maul here. It's going to be the isolation. The Gust is going to be available. They're going to be all right.
They are, but on the backside, B-Kid might have just isolated themselves. Storm Shield has been used.
The Palm missed everybody as well. They're now trying to retreat. Keep in mind, Johanna still is going to have her passive at this point in time. The chase is pretty serious here for TNC. The fact that Gus only hit 2 people there, that was very scary. I thought for a second that was going to be a 3 to 4-man mob and Falstad in it with no Gus available. But luckily, that was not the case here. TNC barely gave way. Honestly, I've never had...
Was that the iron skin that saved Johanna there?
Yeah.
I feel like she was in position. I saw it coming. I saw the unstoppable there for a moment. You know, we talk about the palms. At level 20, Kerosene picked up Storm Shield, not that palm reset.
Yes, so he's not going to take the facepalm talent at 20.
Is that what it's called?
That's what I know. That's what I call it. But really, it's going to be great against the DPS, especially post-mod. It's really awesome. Not depending on having it onto a single target where you can kind of use it is almost like D-Shield-esque. I personally don't mind this choice from him, largely because of Zagara, but we do see the Tyrant Maw pick up here at 24. Zagara, if she ends up hitting a very big Maw, the reset could be real. But they're going to start the boss here because the Maw is the only zoning tool. Sundering is a really big one. Gus as well. This is a very bold play.
Yeah, Maw's still on a little bit of a cooldown. Yeah, nobody's flanking at all, but Mighty Gust is available. So this is interesting.
He can't
Will we see the Divine Shield?
The Gust?
The Gust is there, but on the point, there's the Divine Shield, and now we see the
4 seconds on Maw.
4 seconds of Maul. Divine Palm did land there in the middle. Tiger JK, very low on up. There's the Maul. Is it going to be enough to zone that? Does secure the boss. Can they get the follow-up? 2 members go down. 3 members go down. And now we see Justin Ball. That is 4 members, and just like that, Dread, How is going down, and that is the game. You called it. That here.
Yeah, the Maw was all it's going to take, that boss control. 84% onto the core, it's not going to matter. We have Sonya going back. I don't think it's going to do enough damage. 50%, 44, there's no way. Right? Am I crazy?
Is this happening?
No way. Not like this.
Is this happening?
Not like this. 8,
6%.
That's 3. One more shot.
Oh no, it's targeting the minions. 3%.
Oh my.
Oh my goodness.
That was ridiculous. That was, if Murden didn't back, if he backed half a second later, that last shot would have won the game. That was 3% a core shot. That was, holy cow. That, man, if I was sitting on TNC right now, man, that has got to feel really bad to be in this situation here. But Gale Force eSports, that boss control fight, it was risky, but it paid off. They're going to walk away. They're going on to day number 2 here, J-Hal.
That D-shield going on to Sonya to be able to sacrifice that position. The Mighty Gust was on point, but they had so much. There's the Crowan light beam that we always see in a victory. And it's been a long day for Gale Force eSports. How do you think they're feeling after today?
Honestly, if you come in with a large amount of confidence, and I mean, even though, yes, you did win the last series 2-0, you're moving on to the next day. They have the favorite of the entire tournament to take on, I think, after their performance today. Naventic is considered to be #1 for the time being. That's who they're going to be taking on. And they didn't top deck and wreck their opponents here today in this back half, so I would be afraid. I would not be nearly as confident as I was going into today, that's for sure.
I hope everybody tunes in tomorrow, because I'm going to tell everybody what Zuna told me about why he's trying so hard this weekend. We're going to see how it plays out tomorrow, but they are going to be facing off against Gale Force. That is going to be that's a rematch of the Summer Championship.
Yeah, but here's some of the sweet plays that happened out of that game here. This fight specifically is going to get a large amount of poke here, and we see Tiger overextends a bit too much. There's going to be the follow-up after the Radiant Dash here. Here it comes into play, and look at, dude.
It forced Goku to stay there as a dash target.
Yeah, and oh man, if there was one kill there, I for sure Crone's going to eliminate everybody with that reset. Look at him with that damage here in that fight. Good dodge onto the Maw, but no major kills happening quite yet into this.
I mean, it just seemed like TNC, again, they were so close. I mean, they were forced on the point, the Sundering came out. That was that huge play where the Mighty Gust initiated it, and then
that was talking trash, and then he instantly responds. It's like he could hear me. It all really came down to the boss control fight, and I'm going to be completely honest, that was really risky. I really felt like somebody should have flanked on the side of TNC. The fact that they all hit from the same angle, I think, really hurt them in that situation. The palm there was also a struggle in that fight where they tried to retreat.
There it is, Dredd.
But yeah,
I mean, the Mighty Gust comes out. The Divine Shield was able to keep Michael Udall on point. But what we have up front is TJ, joined by Crowan.
Thanks very much, guys. So I'm joined by Crowan from Gale Force eSports. First off, I want to ask you about your match earlier on the day. You guys had a tough loss to Vox. How did you guys regroup and sort of refocus coming into this last match of the day?
I think we just have to take it one match at a time. Like, whatever happened in the past is in the past, and we just have to refocus. Like, they played a really good game. We didn't play 100%, but that's on us, and we just have to take that and move into the next round.
Yeah, and that worked out for you guys. You guys were able to take this win. There's been some weird map choices today, mostly from TNC. They started off with Battlefield of Eternity, and if that had gone to a third map, it would have been Infernal Shrines again. What do you think of these map picks? Were you guys unprepared for Battlefield of Eternity? What was going on there? Since it's been banned, it was the first time it was picked today.
No, I think we're pretty prepared for it. I think some of the maps today were like Tomb of the Spider Queen and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that every team is prepared for most of their maps. It's just that some teams favor some maps, so that's what you see.
All right, let's talk about heroes for a little bit. Zagara, of course, has been one of the most popular heroes, and you guys have played it extensively. I think you prioritized it over just about everything else in your matches today. Why do you think Zagara all of a sudden has become so powerful?
I think she just offers a lot of like wave pressure, and she can win pretty much every single solo lane. Like, you see the solo lane before with like her versus Thrall, which is like one of the most common solo lane matchups. Like, Thrall would usually win that before with the sustain, but now with the Zagara changes, she can pretty much win that matchup and just have a dominant lane.
Yeah, I think she's had a pretty good win rate across the tournament, so I'll probably be seeing more of her tomorrow. Now going into your matchup tomorrow, your semifinal matchup, you guys are going up against Team Naventic. Going to be a rematch from Summer Regionals. It's probably the two teams that people thought were going to be in the finals. How are you feeling about Team Naventic and going into that semifinals?
We're feeling pretty confident. I mean, we 3-0'd Naventic last time. I know they're feeling pretty confident this time, but I mean, so are we.
All right, there you go. Well, thanks, man. Congratulations. I'll go let you celebrate with your team. We're going to go ahead and send it back over to the panel to close out the day.
Thanks very much, TJ. What a win for Gale Force eSports there on Sky Temple. And I got to talk to you guys about that final boss fight. What a decision to actually go for that. Even when you're going up against Gus, they were still wanting to take that fight.
Truly an excellent example of knowing your win conditions. This is something that Dredd loves to talk about, and he's absolutely right. In that situation, you are way behind on total building damage in the game.
Yeah.
You have to win via a wipe or boss. You know, one of the only ways to force a team wipe in the late game on Sky Temple? Go for the boss.
Yeah.
Sonya, amazing point fighter. Zagara, that Maw, clutch for actually capturing it. But has to be props for the Divine Shield to get Sonya back on the platform and keep her alive long enough for the Maw to come off cooldown.
It was fantastic stuff, of course. Let's take a look at the brackets now, moving on forwards here through Group B, as we do have, of course, Vox Nearly actually taking the top spot in this group. Unexpectedly here in Group B, even Gale Force seemed to realize that is the case, as we were talking from just before. And then, of course, Gale Force eSports down towards the bottom here, moving on into second place. And then from that, we can actually look at the semi-finals now, which have been determined. The top 4 teams here in North America. And would you look at that, because of the way the brackets have worked out, we get our rematch from our second regional of summer. It's going to be Naventic versus Gale Force eSports. One of these teams is not going to the final, whilst one of the teams of Vox Nihili and Murloc Geniuses is going on to the final. Jake, that is quite the bracket to start off our NA regionals here in the fall.
Not how we expected it, but again here, with North America being so shaken up, even TNC looked so good in their game, so big props to them for their performance today. But the fact that we're going to have a team that isn't Gale Force, that isn't Naventic, going into the grand finals tomorrow to fight for that spot for BlizzCon, I don't think anyone expected that. Dunk, who do you think the favorite is there? Do you think Murlocs have the favoritism for that second match?
I have to say, I think Murlocs looked a little better. It looked a little better. Group B looked shaky overall. I have to admit it. Group A looked fierce. Naventic looked on point. Murlocs gave them a good run for their money. So I think that Murlocs has to be given the advantage in that matchup.
Yeah, I have to agree. It kind of looked like night and day from group to group. But we shall see moving on forwards to tomorrow. Thank you very much, boys. Obviously, we'll be joining us tomorrow to see exactly what is going to go down in the semi-finals. But for now, our top 4 is confirmed. Make sure to tune in tomorrow at the same time, because it is going to be hype. We decide who is moving on to BlizzCon for North America Regional number 1. We'll see you tomorrow.
Last few shots not going to be enough, but the damage is done. Are they going to try and put the pressure? And they have that Talontier advantage. Falstad seems to be rotating down. And they see Udall in the bottom.
Yeah,
that's a free keep.
Udall's not going to be able to make it for a couple of seconds here. They are grouped up very heavily for him all. Will Rafa look for it? Look at that collapse.
There
That's
it
a through two-man Maw here is going to be the isolation. The Gust is going to be available. They're going to be all right.
They are, but on the backside, BKid might have just isolated themselves. Storm Shield has been used.
The Paul missed everybody as well. They're now trying to retreat. Keep in mind, Johanna still is going to have her passive at this point in time. The chase is pretty serious here for TNC. The fact that Gus only hit 2 people there, that was very scary. I thought for a second that was going to be a 3 to 4 man Maw and Falstad in it with no Gus available. But luckily that was not the case here. TNC barely gave away. Honestly, I've never had.
Was that the iron skin that saved Johanna there?
Yeah.
I feel like she was in position. I saw it coming. I saw the unstoppable there for a moment. You know, we talk about the bombs. At level 20, Kerosene picked up Storm Shield, not that palm reset.
Yes. So he's not going to take the facepalm talent at 20.
Is that what it's called?
That's what I know. That's what I call it. But really, it's going to be great against the DPS, especially post-Maw. It's really awesome. Not depending on having it onto a single target where you can kind of use it is almost like D-Shield-esque. I personally don't mind this choice from him, largely because of Zagara, but we do see the Tyrant Maw pick up here at 24. Zagara, if she ends up hitting a very big Maw, the reset could be real. But they're going to start the boss here because Maw is the only zoning tool. Sundering is a really big one. Gus as well. This is a very bold play.
Yeah, Maw's still on a little bit of a cooldown. Yeah, nobody's flanking at all, but Mighty Gust is available. So this is interesting.
He can't
Will we see the Divine Shield?
The Gust?
The Gust is there, but on the point, there's the Divine Shield, and now we see the
4 seconds on Maw.
4 seconds of Maw. Divine Palm did land there in the middle. Tiger JK, very low on up. There's the Maw. Is it going to be enough to zone that? Does secure the boss. Can they get the follow-up? 2 members go down. 3 members go down. And now we see Justin fall. That is 4 members, and just like that, Dread, how is going down? And that is the game. You called it. That Maw was there.
Yeah, the Maw was all it's going to take, that boss control. 84% onto the core, it's not going to matter. We have Sonya going back. I don't think it's going to do enough damage. 50%, 44, there's no way. Right? Am I crazy?
Is this happening?
No way. Not like this.
Is this happening?
Not like this. 8,
6%.
That's 3. One more shot.
Oh no, it's targeting the minions. 3%.
Oh my.
Oh my goodness.
That was ridiculous. That was, if Murden didn't back, if he backed half a second later, that last shot would have won the game. That was 3% a core shot. That was, holy cow. That, man, if I was sitting on TNC right now, man, that has got to feel really bad to be in this situation here. But Gale Force eSports, that boss control fight, it was risky, but it paid off. They're going to walk away. They're going on to day number 2 here, J-Hal.
That D-Shield going on to Sonya to be able to sacrifice that position. The Mighty Gust was on point, but they had so much. There's the Crowan light beam that we always see in a victory. And it's been a long day for Gale Force eSports. How do you think they're feeling after today?
Honestly, if you come in with a large amount of confidence, and I mean, even though, yes, you did win the last series 2-0, you're moving on the next day. They have the favorite of the entire tournament to take on, I think, after their performance today. Naventic is considered to be #1 for the time being. That's who they're going to be taking on. And they didn't top deck and wreck their opponents here today in this back half, so I would be afraid. I would not be nearly as confident as I was going into today, that's for sure.
I hope everybody tunes in tomorrow, because I'm going to tell everybody what Zuna told me about why he's trying so hard this weekend. We're going to see how it plays out tomorrow, but they are going to be facing off against Gale Force. That is going to be that's a rematch of the Summer Championship.
Yeah, but here's some of the sweet plays that happened out of that game here. This fight specifically is going to get a large amount of poke here, and we see Tiger overextends a bit too much. There's going to be the follow-up after the Radiant Dash here. Here it comes into play. And look at, dude.
It forced Goku to stay there as a dash target.
Yeah, and oh man, if there was one kill there, I for sure Crowan's going to eliminate everybody with that reset. Look at him with that damage here in that fight. Good dodge onto the Maw, but no major kills happening quite yet into this.
I mean, it just seemed like TNC, again, they were so close. I mean, they were forced on the point, the Sundering came out. That was that huge play where the Mighty Gust initiated it, and then
that was talking trash, and then he instantly responds. But it's like he could hear me. It all really came down to the boss control fight. And I'm going to be completely honest, that was really risky. I really felt like somebody should have flanked on the side of TNC. The fact that they all hit from the same angle, I think, was really hurt them in that situation. The palm there was also a struggle in that fight where they tried to retreat.
There it is, Dread.
But yeah,
I mean, the mighty Gus comes out. The Divine Shield was able to keep Michael Udall on point. But what we have up front is TJ, joined by Crone.
Thanks very much, guys. So I'm joined by Crone from Gale Force eSports. First off, I want to ask you about your match earlier on the day. You guys had a tough loss to Vox. How did you guys regroup and sort of refocus coming into this last match of the day?
I think we just have to take it one match at a time. Like, whatever happened in the past is in the past, and we just have to refocus. Like, they played a really good game. We didn't play 100%, but that's on us, and we just have to take that and move into the next round.
Yeah, and that worked out for you guys. You guys were able to take this win. There's been some weird map choices today, mostly from TNC. They started off with Battlefield of Eternity, and if that had gone to a third map, it would have been Infernal Shrines again. What do you think of these map picks? Were you guys unprepared for Battlefield of Eternity? What was going on there? Since it's been banned, it was the first time it was picked today.
No, I think we're pretty prepared for it. I think some of the maps today were like Tomb of the Spider Queen and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that every team is prepared for most of their maps. It's just that some teams favor some maps, so that's what you see.
All right, let's talk about heroes for a little bit. Zagara, of course, has been one of the most popular heroes, and you guys have played it extensively. I think you prioritized it over just about everything else in your matches today. Why do you think Zagara all of a sudden has become so powerful?
I think she just offers a lot of like wave pressure, and she can win pretty much every single solo lane. Like, you see the solo lane before with like her versus Thrall, which is like one of the most common solo lane matchups. Like, Thrall would usually win that before with the sustain, but now with the Zagara changes, she can pretty much win that matchup and just have a dominant lane.
Yeah, I think she's had a pretty good win rate across the tournament, so I'll probably be seeing more of her tomorrow. Now going into your matchup tomorrow, your semifinal matchup, you guys are going up against Team Naventic. Going to be a rematch from Summer Regionals. It's probably the two teams that people thought were going to be in the finals. How are you feeling about Team Naventic and going into that semifinals?
We're feeling pretty confident. I mean, we 3-0'd Naventic last time. I know they're feeling pretty confident this time, but I mean, so are we.
All right, there you go. Well, thanks, man. Congratulations. I'll go let you celebrate with your team. We're going to go ahead and send it back over to the panel to close out the day.
Thanks very much, TJ. What a win for Gale Force eSports there on Sky Temple. And I got to talk to you guys about that final boss fight. What a decision to actually go for that. Even when you're going up against Gus, they were still wanting to take that fight.
Truly an excellent example of knowing your win conditions. This is something that Dredd loves to talk about, and he's absolutely right. In that situation, you are way behind on total building damage in the game.
Yeah.
You have to win via a wipe or boss. You know, one of the only ways to force a team wipe in the late game on Sky Temple? Go for the boss.
Yep.
Sonya, amazing point fighter. Zagara, that Maw, clutch for actually capturing it, but has to be props for the Divine Shield to get Sonya back on the platform and keep her alive long enough for the Maw to come off cooldown.
It was fantastic stuff, of course. Let's take a look at the brackets now, moving on forwards here through Group B. As we do have, of course, Vox Nearly actually taking the top spot in this group. Unexpectedly here in Group B, even Gale Force seemed to realize that is the case, as we were talking from just before. And then, of course, Gale Force eSports down towards the bottom here, moving on into second place. And then from that, we can actually look at the semi-finals now, which have been determined. The top 4 teams here in North America. And would you look at that, because of the way the brackets have worked out, we get our rematch from our second regional of summer. It's going to be Naventic versus Gale Force eSports. One of these teams is not going to the final, whilst one of the teams of Vox Nihili and Murloc Geniuses is going on to the final. Jake, that is quite the bracket to start off our NA regionals here in the fall.
Not how we expected it, but again here, with North America being so shaken up, even TNC looked so good in their game, so big props to them for their performance today. But the fact that we're going to have a team that isn't Gale Force, that isn't Naventic, going into the grand finals tomorrow to fight for that spot for BlizzCon, I don't think anyone expected that. Dunk, who do you think the favorite is there? Do you think Murlocs have the favoritism for that second match?
I have to say, I think Murlocs looked a little better. It looked a little better. Group B looked shaky overall. I have to admit it. Group A looked fierce. Naventic looked on point. Murlocs gave them a good run for their money. So I think that Murlocs has to be given the advantage in that matchup.
Yeah, I have to agree. It kind of looked like night and day from group to group. But we shall see moving on forwards to tomorrow. Thank you very much, boys. Obviously, we'll be joining us tomorrow to see exactly what is going to go down in the semi-finals. But for now, our top 4 is confirmed. Make sure to tune in tomorrow at the same time because it is going to be hype. We decide who is moving on to BlizzCon for North America Regional #1. We'll see you tomorrow.